afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the internet's most sophisticated wrestling podcast, discussing the weekly aspects of it all, right here on
The Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast on our recently new time. This is the second time we've done Saturday night, kind of late night podcasting. It's kind of nice, I think. Gives me the day to prep for it. It's always a good thing.
And I don't have to wake up early, which is even better.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that air of like we're all trying to wake up when we wake up that early in the morning, for sure. But I don't know.
Everybody's got scratchy voices. You know, the vocal cords have not warmed up. We all sound like we need an extra 2 cups of coffee. 9 o'clock. I mean, we could be sitting there with a beer, just chilling, relaxing.
I've got a alcoholic beverage right next to me, actually, because sometimes you just got to relax when you do the podcast.
I hear you.
I could go for some more of the coffee right now. I don't know about the alcohol.
I mean, we could have a middle ground of spiked coffee. That would be pretty good.
Jimmy, you're reading my mind. I was just going to say the same exact thing.
I'll agree.
So, yes, last week, it was kind of a negative. It felt like kind of some negative vibes up in last week, because of everything that's been going on. I don't know that certain shows have gotten any better, but the what the Bald Monkeys called the main card of wrestling, and that is Wednesday nights. I think that we can all agree that Wednesday night really came through this week.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, another solid week from AEW. And I think we all got our wish that, NXT would come back. And I mean, NXT had a lot of matches and everything on Wednesday night for 2 hours. I mean, it was a good night for the Wednesday night wars, as they say.
I'll agree because I was very on the fence when it came to NXT. But when they announced beforehand that Triple H was going to be there, I was like, okay, maybe this will be worth it. And I was very impressed that they really... Maybe it's just because last week was just shit because they didn't do anything, but I felt like they went, delivered very strongly this week.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting. I have a hard time dissing on last week, and again, it was because watching it with friends who maybe didn't get the full story of Ciampa Gargano. Like, it's good filler. And maybe even the people that watch USA Network and maybe watch Raw and SmackDown, and maybe they don't know the history as well, maybe that helped fill them in a little bit too, if there were more spotty watchers. But, a cop-out's a cop-out, and it's good to have wrestling back into the fold, basically. And, I think there were some interesting matches. There were some interesting returns. I was very excited to see Io Shirai, like very excited. In fact, I think we all cheered when she came out. That's always good when wrestling makes you react like a little kid.
Which I think for most of us on this podcast, even the 2 knuckleheads that aren't here right now, I would say I think we all do that at times.
Yeah, and then you had that interesting introduction, or sort of introduction, of Killer Cross, although we have got no idea what he's going to be called. We're fairly certain he's not going to have the killer in his name. So is he called just Cross, which, would definitely, I think, chap everybody's butt if his name is just Cross. That would drive me crazy. But, King of the
It'll be
one names.
manslaughter. It'll be manslaughter cross. Manslaughter
it'll
doesn't sound as bad as killer.
it'll just be Cross, and his finishing move would be called Killer.
It'll be his name will be person who wants to do violence to you, Cross. Yes.
There you go.
Not to be confused with Nikki Cross, who is crazy leprechaun Cross.
Oh, I was so unhappy to see her come out on Friday.
That's not what you really should be unhappy about. What you should really be unhappy about is Alexa Bliss beating Asuka for what?
Well, yeah, that is true too. I mean, SmackDown brings up the rear again of the 4 shows, in my opinion, with what has been going on.
But I think that it's gotten better from a programming standpoint, at least this week. My issue with it is more the kind of the misuse of talent, and I don't know. Can't say I'm a huge fan of the stuff that they're building up, but at the same time, I don't know. I mean, I guess they're dealing with the hand that they've been dealt with. But I like the whole Corbin Elias thing. Like, how uninteresting is Baron Corbin and Elias? I mean, the problem is they've misused Elias so much that all of a sudden, why am I supposed to be excited about him being like the main opponent to Baron Corbin?
First of all, it's King Corbin. Chris might not be able to speak up for himself, but it's King Corbin.
Yeah, well, Chris is in the channel right now. He's just a little bit afraid to talk. So we'll wait here until he talks.
I apologize. I'm trying to be cognizant of my levels of internet that is not working tonight. So I don't know if I sound like a robot or if you guys can hear me right now. You haven't interrupted me yet, so it must be okay. But
You're good. You didn't
First of
get
all-
one of the AEW mics.
first of all, yes, King Corbin. Second of all, you didn't enjoy them leaning into the idea that it was a taping and doing some camera work, which was like, hey, I want to make it seem like, well, first of all, there's some pretty good Twitter stuff out there where they did the sound with Scar killing Mufasa over when
That's
he hits
awesome.
him and falls off. It's kind of awesome. And them just leaning into it, I don't know, man. Like, there's this weird thing for SmackDown this week where they got me a little bit. Like, not that I enjoyed what I was watching, but I questioned what was going on because I know so much about what's about to happen. Like, Roman's not going to be able to wrestle. Miz is not going to be able to wrestle. Andrade's not going to be able to wrestle. There's a bunch of guys just out, and they just kept pushing and promoting stuff that is not going to happen. So I'm, wait a second, why not just change the recording? You remember the old days where we used to watch a recording and the voiceover would obviously not match up with the announcer or the announce table? Well, why wouldn't they just do that? Why are they allowing Michael Cole to sound like an idiot right now while he's promoting Roman Reigns and Bill Goldberg? So to me, SmackDown was kind of interesting because I don't know what they're doing right now. So I'm kind of curious to what they're going to do.
But doesn't
Well,
it... Go ahead.
I was going to say it'll be really interesting to see what happens on Monday night with Raw. Are they going to continue this? Yep, we're going on with what we have planned, and we're just going to change it at the last second. Or is next week going to be like the things where they might retape some of the things, do different graphics and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I guess it's because they have everything pre-recorded. That is the issue they run into. Or do they, running with what they've got recorded, do they just pull an audible and say, you know what, we were a little bit silly to not cancel WrestleMania, or postpone it rather. Let's just go ahead and postpone it.
No way. There's no way. I see no way that Vince McMahon would swallow his pride and do something like that. No way.
Roman Reigns. That's it. If Roman's not going to be there, that's Vince. That's who he thinks is his meal ticket. If Roman can't do it, he will be inclined. And if John Cena for some reason backs out, then he feels like he has no star power, and he would most definitely. I could see it happening where they just say, "Okay, well, we screwed up. Let's redo it later."
Yeah, but according to all the sources that are out there, that I mean, we all read here and there, this has already been taped. Like all 16 or 12 or 14 or whatever website you look at for matches, all of these matches have already been taped.
Yeah, it was kind of strange, like because your reaction, I think, was the best, Chuck. It was the same reaction I was having when I had sent that text out to you guys about Roman Reigns not being there, which was you were like, I thought it was already taped. I agree. I thought it was already taped too. So are they just trying to drum up news stories? I don't know.
I mean, I completely understand Roman Reigns' standpoint if he did pull out. I mean, because of his medical history. I mean, I completely understand that. I mean, you don't want to take a chance that
It's a little
some
deeper.
schmuck that you know come across is gonna have this and not show any signs, and then you're in a really bad predicament because you have a an existing medical condition.
And
Well, it actually goes a little deeper than that. So as it's coming out, the Miz was sick. So the Miz is out, and the Miz is sick, and the Usos are pissed because obviously he came to work sick. They did that taping, and apparently he wasn't feeling well. So they are mad not only because they're missing a title shot, but because the Miz is endangering Roman Reigns, their cousin, obviously. So there's a whole fiasco now with the Miz is a jerk. He came to work not feeling well. Where the other side of the coin is, hey, the guy came to work no matter what, but now what's going on? Shouldn't come to work. Blah blah blah. Whatever. It's a mess. And to everyone's, I think on this podcast point, whether Vince McMahon thinks it's the right thing to do or not, it needs to be done. If it was done, it would be the right move. Release all these matches as a network special, whatever. I don't care that matches happened. I don't care that they were advertised for WrestleMania. We'll circle back and we'll have a whole new card for WrestleMania when you're able to do it. But putting this out as WrestleMania is a joke, and they just need to stop. They need to just move on and do something else.
Can we call it what I came up with? Can we please call it WrestleMess 2020?
Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean, and the only thing that makes it WrestleMess is the insistence of continuing to do it. I mean, a WrestleMania can be salvaged, absolutely. And again, everything imaginable points to, like, no matter how you postpone it, you can turn it into the biggest extravaganza ever. I mean, by postponing it deep into the year, it's a WrestleMania like no other WrestleMania before it, if you want to build it that way. And I think that that's a smart thing to do. So instead of trying to go against the grain, because the thing that boggles my mind about this, and would make sense if it went one way, but it's not, is okay, we've pre-taped all these matches. We have this, and this, and we're going to put it on the network and call it WrestleMania. Well, don't put it on the network. Put it on a big network. Sell it to a big network. And then I guess I understand it a little bit more. If you were to put it on an NBC or a Fox or something like that, would it come across very well with having all the empty seats? Maybe not. That might be an issue. But at the same time, you got a bunch of people that are just sitting at their houses and they're not doing anything, and there's nothing to watch because there no sports is going on. Like they will gobble it up just because it's something to watch.
Oh my God! Think about all the concerts that these bands and stuff are doing on Facebook. there's no clapping, there's no yelling or screaming. They're just playing music. They're just entertaining. So it's the same idea. Just put wrestling out there, entertain us. We'll watch it no matter what. The only difference, and I've said this before, is the crowd adds or subtracts from a match, from a promo, etc. I still think they could do something where they would pipe in some kind of sound or noise, even what AEW did with the wrestlers around the ring or the wrestlers even backstage. There's a way to do it to at least give some kind of aspect of a crowd without obviously having a real crowd there.
Yeah, that's the one interesting thing that I noticed, like watching. So, for instance, watching NXT and comparing a match like, let's go with Tyler Breeze versus Austin Theory, and how my only critique for WWE and their products would be get a little noisier when you're wrestling, and you could hear them talking to each other. But I still don't think that they were noisy enough. If the three people are going to be the only three people in the ring, just those those two wrestlers and that ref, you guys need to get a lot more vocal, because some of that, the gap, the silence and stuff, unless you are building story around silence, which I think happens. I actually think that in your Matt Hardy Jericho promo, there were bits of silence that I think worked very well in that promo. But if you're not doing that, if you're not going out of your way to do that, it is kind of distracting. And so I almost prefer the wrestlers to just be wrestling and be loud and just be barking at each other the whole time, because it just helps, keep that little bit of adrenaline going through a match that does not have the crowd to do that for them.
Yeah, they need to sell the momentum or the effect of the moves that are happening in the ring a little bit more. I agree with that. I think both you and Chris are kind of spot on with that aspect of what's been going on, especially in WWE.
Yeah, but that being said, NXT was good. There were questionable things. There were questionable things
Wrestling.
for my
I was impressed
taste.
with the amount of wrestling they had.
Yeah.
Both shows, AEW, NXT, a lot of wrestling Wednesday night, which was good to see.
It was, so the first match that, we watched the other night, was Breeze Theory. And I'm watching it with Chaz and Sarah, and I go, well, there's no way that Tyler Breeze is going to win, because that just doesn't make logical booking sense to me. And then Austin Theory lost to Tyler Breeze. So I was like, okay. I guess if they're starting a rivalry together, or am I overthinking it? And because of all the stuff going on around the world, I just need to take a step back and be like, just take it a match at a time, which is probably the answer. Just take it a match at a time.
I think NXT is a little bit different unless you're a really big name coming on to NXT, you actually kind of go through the ranks a little bit. You take some lumps, you take some losses. If you go back and look at the history of NXT, a lot of guys took early career losses before they started becoming big. So I'm not against it, and I'm not surprised actually that Tyler Breeze was able to get a win over Austin Theory.
Yeah. But that being said, like I said, I thought NXT was very good, and it wasn't like there was lots of matches where was I surprised at the outcome. When you see Shirai come out and she's facing Aaliyah, it's like, well, there's only one direction this match is going. So it wasn't like particularly great wrestling match, but it was because they sped the match up a little bit and made sure it didn't go too long. The excitement of having somebody like Shirai back takes care of it. Takes care of the lack of great wrestling in the match.
Yeah, how about Thorne and Vink, the little tag team, getting used both on Raw and NXT this week?
I think that just speaks to availability probably more than anything.
Yeah, I would agree. And I thought they looked okay in both matches. I think. the Street Profits. I mean, you knew who was going to win both of those matches, but I mean, to throw and they're not, just local talent guys, So it was nice to see that, they're using some of these guys that are kind of around in the area when others, can't get there and everything.
Thorne's good, man. I feel like he's been misused a little bit, or at least just maybe he's in the wrong area. Maybe as a tag team high flyer, he needed to be on the main show or something. He just couldn't find a groove in NXT for some reason. And then his partner got cut, so he was kind of on his own for a while there. And he's built a character back up. And this Vink guy, he's kind of big. Like, he's tall. I don't know that he's like a big powerhouse guy, but he's pretty tall. So I'll be interested to see what they do with them as a tag team. What about that other tag team that came out and kind of squashed Riddle there?
Yeah.
Who are those guys?
I-
I don't even. I have no idea who they were. Zero
I
idea.
I even like kind of tried to Google them and look into them a little bit, and I'm still was just like, you know what? I know I do a wrestling podcast. I have no flipping idea who these guys are.
But I kind of like that. It builds that mystery to it a little bit, to where you want to see them next week to find out who they are and why.
Yeah, well, yeah, because
Yeah.
what Blevins is out there and he's like, I'm here to introduce the tag team. And then it stops and I'm yelling. I'm like, well, then introduce them. Who the hell are they? You didn't introduce them.
If you guys watched the Circle Squared, that was one of the critiques that Eli Drake made of one of the wrestlers that came out there. It was one of the female wrestlers. She came out there. She talked about going to do what she planned to do here in NWA, and Eli Drake just keeps going. What's your name? What's your name? Say your name. Tell us your name. It's a simple thing, guys. You got to tell us who you are, otherwise we can't even Google you. We can't be excited for you. So I agree with Steven, though. It does build a little bit of mystery, but I think the promo that the manager cut was kind of, he should have just said, we're here to change the dynamic of the tag division, and then just drop the mic and that's it. Not say I'm going to introduce you to anybody, because you're not really introducing anybody.
Yeah, I looked really quick at one of the guys and I was like, wait, is that Jinder Mahal with a beard?
He looks like
And then I was like, oh, wait, no. He's got like a big chest tattoo. Never mind.
Plus, Ginger would have had to let himself go. Those guys were not chiseled. They're big
I know.
dudes, but
I know.
it's them playing to that Indian market again.
I did like the Ciampa Gargano with Triple H promo. I thought that ended NXT strong. I like the idea of them just Gargano saying, we don't need a crowd. We don't need millions of people watching. I just need a ring and him. That, I mean, I like that. I like what they're doing with it. It's getting me intrigued again. But at the same time, it sucks the situation we're in right now. So I would like to see them on a bigger stage. I would like to see them, ending this feud in a bigger way. But I'll be interested to see what they put together in an empty building somewhere, because apparently the performance center is not empty enough. So
And I agree. And like you were saying, it's getting you kind of excited for it again. They've always had great chemistry, whether it's as a team or against each other. We were talking the other day about them all before all this started happening, about what kind of match have they not done yet. And an empty arena match, or as they call it, an unsanctioned match, which I think is a stupid name. But just let them beat the hell out of each other with nobody around. Let them fight through the stands, fight through the back. Just let them use every single thing possible. And it might, add that extra little line they haven't crossed yet.
I feel like that promo was working on me a little bit, and the thing I liked the most about it was that they kept like kind of shooting Triple H down. Like, he kept trying to be like, this needs to be on the biggest stage. This needs to, and they were like, no. Exactly what you're saying. Like, it's great. I mean, I loved that, because they're not like main card WWE guys. They don't even buy into it anymore. They're all NXT, and that's all they want to be. And Triple H freaking loves that, because he doesn't want them to ruin those guys. Johnny Gargano would get swallowed up on the main.
So would Ciampa, I think. Honestly, he's just not big enough. He's a great wrestler, but these bigger guys, I think, just eat up these quote unquote cruiserweight size guys. And I am gonna mention that I think they did have an unsanctioned match back at one of the NXTs when technically Gargano was like out of NXT. So that was sort of an unsanctioned match. But this is still different. Empty arena, whatever you want to call it. I mean, short of what The Rock and Mankind having an empty arena match. I mean, it's a good throwback type of match.
I like the comparison that Triple H drew to him and HBK, kind of
Yeah.
paving the way for, all that kind of stuff with friends, and then they're fighting and then they're friends, and, comparing that whole aspect of their wrestling relationship to Ciampa and Gargano's relationship. I thought that was a nice little tweak in there with him in the ring with them.
It's the truth. I mean, it's something that I think we've talked about where it reminds us of that feud they had, of how just hellish some of those matches they had, and how many times they had big matches against each other, and how many times they then teamed to have big matches. So they're not done. I mean, these two are going to continue to either cross each other's paths or team together or whatever for years to come.
Yeah, especially if they both stay in NXT. And I love the aspect of people wanting to stay there or wanting to come back there, because honestly, that makes me more excited for Survivor Series every year, knowing that you're going to get that NXT angle to it all. And the way they did it this year was great, and keeping those people, building them there, keeping them away from the main roster, so they're not out there just getting squashed by everybody every time you turn around. It's a great thing they're doing.
And what I thought was the nice thing about Triple H bringing up that comparison was, and I don't know if you guys did it or even thought about it, but I know I went, oh, hold on, I got to go back and see like the matches these guys had, and then I'm looking and I'm like, there's like Armageddon in 2002. There was a SummerSlam. There were 2 Survivor Series matches that they had against each other, like a couple of like regular Raw matches, and I was like, man, they really did beat the crap out of each other for like a good length of time.
Yeah, it was great. Dude, that's when I fell back in love with wrestling again. That feud. It was awesome. Just back and
When he first came back and they had that match and Triple H hit him with the sledgehammer in the back after the match.
yeah, me and Chuck may or may not have been there when that happened. We were there. It was awesome.
We were.
Spoiler alert, we were there.
Unfortunately, you don't see me tugging on my shirt in the crowd.
No, but you do hear me jumping up and down, squealing like a little girl. If you listen closely.
That probably is true.
Yeah, I look forward to more of these guys feuding, and I think they're going to have years of good wrestling to come. But all in all, I mean, a good night of NXT, a good night of wrestling. And then, I mean, AEW, I think, went toe-to-toe with them all night long, too.
So, real quick, this is probably poor podcast etiquette, but are we actually doing WrestleMania picks tonight?
Podcast. How can we do WrestleMania picks tonight when the card is so up in the air? I know Chuck went out and sent a text about what we think the matches are going to be, but they've announced 0 things, correct? They still are saying that Roman Reigns is going to fight Goldberg.
Yes, if you look at WWE.com and look at their WrestleMania card, it is the original card that was supposed to come out with, Roman Reigns against Goldberg and the Street Profits versus Andrade and Garza. I do believe that they don't even, no, they do have the Usos M&M match on there, I believe.
The triple threat.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's
here's what I'm pitching.
I'm
pitching this. I'm pitching this. We don't pick. We don't make picks for something that, 1, shouldn't be WrestleMania, and 2, is so up in the air right now. I think we can make picks with each other through text, but doing it on the podcast is just silly at this point. And by the time we do the podcast next week before WrestleMania, if it does go off, there's going to be so much stuff that comes out that one of us is going to see something and it's just not even going to be fair to make picks at that point. So I'm
Mm.
saying no picks.
Yeah, and I mean, and that was the reason why I said, hey, with what we thought the card was, I mean, I don't even know when I sent it out, maybe earlier this week, let's make our picks now so that we kind of do our picks between ourselves before something leaks and one of us reads something else and blah blah blah, this and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I just sent out a text earlier to you guys with the five matches that have either changed, or 5 or 6 matches that have either been changed or added to the card. So yeah, it's just it's a mystery. I mean, who knows what is going to happen?
Mystery, like,
get-
is it a question mark? Is that what it is?
It might be question.
Karate.
karate. And if you don't know what we're referring to, YouTube NWA.
Go watch.
Are you officially caught up, Chuck?
I still have, I think, 2 episodes left. I kind of got caught up with some work that kind of overtook kind of listening and paying attention to that. So I still got two episodes left, and then I'll be all caught up.
All right, I need to know your favorite NWA wrestler, male and female, so far.
Oh man. I would say male has got to be Eli Drake.
Love me
And
some Eli Drake.
he is so good on the mic. And female, I think I have to go with Thunder Rosa.
So Thunder Rosa is not bad. I feel like she's been around a little bit. I mean, she's kind of young when it comes to wrestling career.
Yes.
But she's definitely like got some like a little young Melina in her with some of the wrestling style she has, because Melina was a decent wrestler, but she was always, I mean, she was just Morrison's eye candy for the most part. So I feel like Thunder Rosa is a little bit better in the ring. I think her and Allison Kay had really good chemistry, but I don't know that she's had much chemistry with the other wrestlers just yet. And that's probably what NWA is suffering from. There's a lot of lack of chemistry with some of this wrestling because there's very little wrestling going on in a lot of these matches. So I don't doubt that. Thunder Rosa is pretty good. So I mean, she's definitely a workhorse out there for them. She's either on social media or on the mic or behind, in the ring for them a lot. So they're putting a lot behind her.
Listen, Zicky Dice for life. That's all I gotta say.
That
Zicky Dice for
dude.
life.
I would not doubt that you would love Zicky Dice. Outlandish.
I also love James Storm, but that's he's a little more of a one of those more classic
Old school
heel
James
type
Storm's
wrestlers.
old school, yeah.
He's good though. Yeah, I
Good
mean,
stuff.
well, what did we think? What did we think about AEW? We were getting ready to pivot to it, and I kind of away from it. But
Well, let's before to AEW, we do have a live tweet coming at us from one Seraphin, asking
Sarah.
us what's going to happen in the Gargano Ciampa storyline. She wants our prediction on what will actually happen in the storyline, which is an interesting question because we talked about, I think, how good it should be and what we expect it to be going forward. But what's the outcome? Where are we going to? What's next for Ciampa and Gargano?
They're gonna team back up and win the tag titles.
Really? So do you think they will take them from Riddle and the Broserweight?
I think so. I think you give it a few months, let Riddle and the Broserweight just run through everybody, keep finding ways to win, and then when it looks like nobody can stop them and they're getting, overly cocky, here they.
well, for me, the question would be, with the way that promo ended, do I think that person who wants to take your life cross is going to get involved in that in any shape, or form, like against whoever wins. So I feel like my gut says yes. My gut says they have this match, and whoever is the victor of that match is the person who's going to have to, you know, they're just throw Killer Cross right into the deep end and say, you're having a program with this person. Because that person, whoever it may be, I'm going to go with. Oh, man. I'm going to go with Gargano because Gargano is the lovable loser. And with a heel turn, I'll just say he's going to win. So I think that, well, no, gosh, does that make any sense? Because he's playing the heel. Man, this is tough. Okay, we'll go with Ciampa. So Ciampa's going to win the match, but then he's going to be going up against a badass Killer Cross. And, I think that is the direction that Ciampa at least goes in. I think Gargano losing, he'll just find a way to reset his character and get himself involved in the mid card eventually.
See, no, I think Cross, they did that promo there to bring attention. I think he should come in at a different angle. I know people like us know him a little bit. He's got a following. I don't see why they can't bring him and already have him come out against like Keith Lee or put him in the main title picture. I'd like to see him and Adam Cole go against each other for a little while. Just give him a little of the respect that he deserves.
See, I think it could be a combination of what you guys are both saying. It could be, I don't know if I could pick Ciampa over Gargano or Gargano over Ciampa in that match, but it could be one of those things where whoever loses that YMCA abandoned YMCA match goes away for a little while, and then let's say Killer Cross is the one that they're alluding to. He comes back, starts to go at the winner of that match, whoever it may be, and just, obliterates him, just destroys that person, behind the scenes, in the back, jumps in.
Drop.
Loser from that match comes in and is like, hey, hold on, you can't do this. This is my man. We've been to war. You're coming at him. You're going to come at me. That's going to be the reunification of them, of DIY. Then they're gonna get back into tag teaming together. They're gonna go after the belts. So I see it as it could be a little bit of both of what you guys are saying.
I think that makes sense too.
All right, this is what I got. So I think what's gonna happen, and I think Gargano said some things during the promo that were interesting to me, and a few promos. He keeps talking about how Ciampa is going to show who he truly is, and Gargano is going to make sure that he shows everybody who he really is. And Ciampa keeps obviously saying, Gargano's saying Ciampa's, who he really is. So Gargano's trying to say that Ciampa's going to show his true colors, right? And I'm wondering if this Killer Cross promo, I'm wondering if Killer Cross is actually aligning himself with one of these two. And I keep flipping back and forth what makes the most sense. And I think at the moment it would make sense for Gargano to stay down this road of heel and for Gargano to basically come out and have Killer Cross interfere in some way, be the only other guy in that arena and help him beat Ciampa and have the victory and continue down that heel road. I think that's what they'll do of the two options. I'd actually prefer them to go the other way. I'd actually prefer Ciampa to go back to being a heel, even if it's a dirty heel and aligning himself with Killer Cross. The issue here is one of these guys needs to leave after.
Will leave or just go away for a temporary time.
I think right now it makes the most sense from what I'm watching is that Gargano's going to end up a heel. Killer Cross will align with Gargano to help him beat Ciampa, and then Ciampa will be on the shelf for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, I think all that's. I think that's all valid. I mean, I think all those storylines make sense. For me, it's like Cross salvages this match that I'm not like kind of wishy-washy on, because again, it was just a matter of like I'm kind of
Secret
tired of
ingredient.
seeing them again, but then that secret ingredient kind of makes it interesting. And I kind of see where, you know, Triple H was making the comment, you know, only one man is going to walk out. What if that one man's Killer Cross? What if that's the one person that walks out?
Just knock them all out. Yeah. Could be.
Exactly. He just destroys both of them. And like as Chuck says, that is the factor that maybe brings them together in the long run, but it also requires what you said, for somebody to leave for a little while. So have them both leave for a little while.
I think ultimately what they've done something, they've made us interested in the feud again, because I think we were kind of shying away from it after it coming back up again, and now it's like interesting again. So kudos to them.
You know what's not interesting though? Keith Lee versus Dijakovic versus Priest. I don't care. I do not care. Not interesting.
That's proof that a good crowd makes it more interesting, because man, with no crowd, it's hard to watch a promo of Keith Lee. I love the guy. I think he's awesome, but he needs the crowd around him to feed off of them, to do those stares, to those lookaways, to get the chance. And I wasn't feeling it. And I still love Dijakovic. I still think he's the one guy I think we're going to be talking about in the future more than any of those three. But yeah, I wasn't digging that. That was kind of off for them. He did that crazy flip though. That was a pretty good move. It was a big.
I mean, they got moves. These guys have moves. It's just you know me, Mr. Story. I'm
Drink.
Story has soured on me. My drink's empty though. I gotta go make another drink if I want to drink some more.
Make your other drink, and let's talking about AEW, the other great show of the week.
All right, I'm gonna go make a drink. You guys talk about AEW.
So I'm going to start with what I didn't like. I didn't like the confusion at the announce desk when it started. Cody, Shivani, everything going on. Then Cody goes to wrestle, and Shivani's by himself, and then he brings out Omega, and then Omega's talking over it. Omega, did anyone notice that Omega, Shivani sound like they were whispering during the Cody Havoc match? Just the way they were talking, it was like this weird whisper.
I didn't get the sense of that. I actually thought Kenny Omega did a halfway decent job.
I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it was okay to like. I'm not critiquing what he was saying, but it just seemed like it was they were like whispering because they know if they talk too loud, you'd hear it in the ring too, because it's really loud, and you probably hear the echo because there's no one else there. Maybe it was just me. I mean, go back and listen, but it seemed weird to me.
That's a random critique I wouldn't have expected from you two.
Hey, this is what I'm here for. This is random times, man. But I mean, Jimmy Havoc, I mean, kudos to him. That was not a normal Jimmy Havoc match that he had with Cody. And as I saw, Havoc got on the microphone and didn't curse. So that's a win for Jimmy Havoc. I mean, that guy is a foul mouth. He is constantly cursing. So congratulations, Havoc.
So speaking of things that you kind of picked up on, Chris, you talked about the possible whispering, and I brought this up to Chris. Did anybody else notice Brandy Rhodes's costume change or clothing change in between the first match and the second match?
Didn't until you pointed it out.
I was like, wait, hold on,
Completely.
time out. I was like, she was just in like a jean jacket and a skirt, and now she's in a red dress, and there's another chick with her at the like time bell table. What's going on?
Is it taped?
I think they taped
Some of
the Darby Allin Sabian match last week, maybe. Now I didn't go back to see what she was wearing last week, but I was like, whoa, that was really, really odd.
I mean,
I was
I
thinking
don't
the
expect
same
them to
thing.
have it live. I mean, obviously it was taped to a
Yeah.
degree because they did the silly thing where Matt Hardy kept jumping around the arena.
What? That
And
wasn't
Wait.
really happening? What?
You know why?
Yeah, no,
You know what
it
made it
definitely
look.
was.
You know what my critique of AW was Jericho. You just had the one. There was the one shot where your head turned a little bit, and you ruined the effect of it. You were so
He
close.
was turning to look because it was like, oh, Matt's over there. Matt's over there. Matt's over. Give Jericho a break, man. The dude cut a promo on a drone.
He did.
I mean,
it was spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing. He cut a promo on a drone, and if you look at social media, he cut a promo on a Roomba this week, also. So I mean,
Yeah, the
this guy's on
Roomba
a
one
roll.
was good. The Roomba, but the drone in front of it, and not just with the empty crowd, but a drone. There's a reason why he is the greatest alive right now. That's still
I was talking to Chris because I had now obviously there's plenty of stuff for us to talk about, so we don't have to dip into that Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. But I was talking to Chris about it, and I was like, man, I'm like, after the last couple years of watching Jericho from New Japan into AEW, it's hard for me not to put him up there as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And
Yeah,
I think he definitely makes
It's
my
time.
Rushmore. He makes my
Yeah.
Rushmore.
yeah, he's on mine also. I mean, just looking at the body of work he's done. I mean, you can't deny the guy has been top class every single year that he's active. If he's active, he is in the top conversation of every promotion he's been in. And there's very few guys you could say that have done that. I mean, obviously the guys like Flair, the guys like Shawn Michaels.
every promotion he's been in, because he was in NXT for a while. Back when it
Chris
was I guess it was OVW.
Jericho.
Oh, I was still thinking Kenny Omega. Sorry, my bad. I zoned out for.
I was
Wait,
like,
who
whoa,
did you?
when
Did
was
you,
the
did you
Lions
get
ever
that
in
coffee?
NXT?
Did you get that spiked coffee, Steven? What was that?
Here it
Oh,
is.
if only.
I thought I missed a really cool couple of years of wrestling. If I mean, Chris Jericho in NXT is like a dream. That'd be incredible. I mean, put him in there right now.
I mean, some of Jericho's bits over the years have been like just amazing. Like the whole Y2J thing was awesome. I mean, the list, everybody loved the list. How could you not love the list? Like just some the things that he's done has been great. I mean, and all I think, in my opinion, as much as I like what he did in WWE and what he's done after that, I think the best time when I saw Jericho is when he was in WCW.
The list of the holds.
Oh yeah, that too.
So
Man of 1,002 holds.
I have another AEW question for you boys. What did you think about Brody Lee making his out of ring character be Vince McMahon?
Explain how it's Vince McMahon, because I've seen these things, but I haven't dug into them. So tell me how it's not Vince McMahon. How it's
so basically, when he's got the vignette where he's eating, and he's got the two guys next to him, there are just multiple things there that apparently Vince McMahon is well known for. One, that he has to eat before everybody else. One, that he can't stand it when people sneeze around him. And so Brody Lee was just clearly, playing off these and doing a Vince McMahon character in a vignette.
I mean, it's an easy target, I guess.
Yeah, true.
I am not in on Brody Lee yet. I seem to think I will be, because I liked him as, so I feel like I'll like him as Brody Lee once he finally like materializes into some matches and some feud. Not. but I'm really not there yet with him. I thought I'm probably the one that stands alone with this. I thought the reveal was kind of meh, like it was okay at best. I think they could have done more. I think they could have been more interesting with it. I think he's got the wrong ring gear on. Like there's a lot of little things about Brody Lee right now that I don't agree with, but I'm gonna give it time because I think like anything in AEW, they're working through finding what works. And that's the great part about NXT. That's the great part about AEW. I'm not going to sit here and criticize that it's broken. I'm just going to say it's not quite working the best that it can yet.
I found myself scrolling through something to listen to while I was at work, and look at me, I'm going to hype a already very hyped podcast. I was listening to Talk Is Jericho because Brody Lee was on there. And one of the more interesting stories he told kind of early on in the podcast was about trying to pitch stories to WWE. And one of these stories that he pitched was like, obviously he can talk very well. Which you just don't hear him talk very often because they didn't let him talk in WWE because they didn't want him to. But so one of the things that he tried to pitch as an angle to WWE was, hey, I want to be kind of a monster character, but an intelligent genius monster character. Like a guy that is intimidating, but then is also it seems like he's very intelligent and can talk very well. Like he wanted to build a character around that. And like basically how they just shot it down. And then all of a sudden down the road, here's Eric Rowan. And Eric Rowan is given a character where he's then turned on Daniel Bryan and is like, oh, I'm an intelligent monster type of a character. I found that very, very interesting.
Yeah, it is weird how stuff like that happens. I liked when Brody Lee came out the first week and announced himself as the Exalted One. I thought it was good, but I kind of am on Team Tiro on this one. With I'm not really sure if I like what's going on currently. I want to see what happens. I mean, I agree with, I think, at least two of you guys. I don't know how Steven feels, but I mean, I think he has the chance to be a great character in AEW. It'll just kind of, I would have liked to have the Exalted One be a little bit more dark than like um I don't know, like mind manipulation, like kingpin kind of guy.
Yeah, it's a tricky storyline for sure, and I don't know that the storyline had helped itself at all before throwing Brody Lee in there. So it muddles it up even more. I tend to agree with Chris from the standpoint that they will fix the storyline no matter what. If a storyline is hitting, they've proven that they're going to manipulate it until it can, or they'll just change everything up. So yeah, I got confidence. I got confidence in Brody Lee. He's a good wrestler.
See Brandy Rhodes, right? I mean, they saw something wasn't working, they stopped. They changed.
Not to mention the thing I was excited about for Brody Lee, and I would like for them to start building toward this. I would like for one of the hardcore wrestlers to create issues with the Dark Order, because I am ready to see Brody Lee in a hardcore match. It is what he was born to do.
So, speaking of the Dark Order, I'm going to take a little swerve here on the podcast because that's what we do and I'm allowed to.
Dark Side?
So, no, actually, that's a good swerve too. But I'll get to that. First, I'm going to go to our friend Evil Uno. And I say our friend Evil Uno because Evil Uno and I had a bit of an interaction this week, I should say, on social media. We talked about it last week on the podcast, his interaction with a couple of WWE wrestlers about the idea of the independents. and I asked him if I was going to buy an independent, wrestler's t-shirt, who should it be? And his very frank answer was your favorite. So, of course, being curious, I asked the Twitterverse to give me some people out there to look at, and they answered. And I had a very busy week of looking up all these different wrestlers that people suggested to me. I got some new shirts. I think Chris Bay is one I want to bring up. He's on Impact. The guy is kind of like Swerve, who I think we all love. So if you have a chance to check him out, he's pretty good. Another guy, and I'm going to look his name up here because I only got to see a few videos of him. Let me look him up real quick. So he is out of Independence, called Alex Zane. I don't know if anybody's seen Alex Zane or know who he is, but he has some really great high flying matches. YouTube him out there. He's a good one to reach out to and talk about. And then I got a couple other good shirts. One coming for Jimmy that I think he would really like. This guy named Manser. I think he is right up Jimmy's alley. Chainsaw Massacre is the shirt that he has, and he is every bit of a hardcore wrestler. So this was kind of a swerve off and then come back into your hardcore mention, Jimmy, because this guy is ridiculous.
Sounds like fun, man.
Oh man, dude. The stuff that he bashes people in the head with and bashes himself in the head with is, you see that like backyard wrestling stuff where it's like these kids are idiots. It's that kind of like objects, but like good wrestling. Like he actually knows what he's doing and looks good doing it. So I highly suggest checking Manser out. He's something else.
Yeah, I always enjoyed the kid on Twitter who would like set up a table or like a plywood thing.
I hate that kid. I hate that kid.
Do you?
And he jumps on the cactuses and stuff.
I
hate that kid.
I don't hate that
Hate
kid.
him.
You know why? Because that is how we get kids like Joey Janela that get into the industry.
No.
Joey Janela
Come
used to
on,
do stuff
man.
like that, man.
Yeah, but that's not Joey Janela. Come on now. You've seen those videos. That is never going to be Joey Janela. Let's be honest. That kid is going nowhere other than the hospital. There's no other place for that kid to go. He's not.
Well, they'll turn him
He's
away.
Not athletic.
They'll turn him away from the hospital. They'll be like, "Yeah, I've got a cactus in my back." They'll be like, "Just deal with it. We got bigger fish to fry here."
Jeez. Well, I mean, like I said, Manser's a good one to check out. Check out Chris Bay. Check out Alex Zane. Check out Jay Walker. Jay Walker may not be the most athletic looking guy out there, but he's got a really cool shirt. He calls himself the Glitch or Glitch in the System. So it's kind of cool promo that he has there. And then Allison K. I mean, Sienna. I mean, you guys know her probably from Impact. She's on NWA now. She's an absolute sweetheart. I got a new hoodie coming to me because of her. She's had interactions back and forth with me. She's kind of an indie wrestler because she's in a smaller promotion in NWA. So I had a really good week kind of reaching out to the independents and talking to some of them and learning a little bit more about them. And with as little wrestling as I thought I was going to see this week, it helped me out earlier in the week. But then, obviously AEW and NXT came to play this week with tons of wrestling. So just wanted to call that out before we swerve back. Let's turn the car back around unless you got
pivot,
one more
small
thing.
pivot, small pivot.
Pivot, Jimmy. Pivot.
And it was about like you not liking that kid on Twitter. But please tell me you like the two guys that wrestle like everywhere, that wrestle in like the Walmart. And wrestle in like the fast food chain. Okay. Those guys are great.
I love those guys. Yeah, those are amazing to watch.
Talented, athletic, talented. Did you see the one where he drops the guy power bomb into the corner of the air hockey table?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, broken back.
I like the Spanish fly he did in the middle of a Walmart.
He did like 8 Spanish flies. That is like the move, is the Spanish fly they keep doing. So those guys I'm impressed with. And those guys probably have a career ahead of them in some kind of independent wrestling, at least, if they would just pursue it. So those guys are good. Yes. So that pivot made sense. I'm good with that.
Okay. So now pivot dark side. We
Holy cow!
we had a little bit of a homework.
Woo.
We had a little bit of a homework assignment from last week, and it was to watch the Benoit Part 1, Part 2 episodes of the Dark Side of the Ring. We talked about it, and without me even knowing it, a couple days before, they had put the first part online. And then by Tuesday of the next week, after we recorded, they put out the second part. And man, that was a very, very, very intense episode of that show. And I think I'll let you speak to it first, Chris, because I think you really, for me, like the most intense part of it is probably the part you're going to talk about. So go ahead. Tell me what you think.
Well, I'm going to put it this way to start the conversation. I will never watch these Dark Side ever again. Ever again. And that's not because they're bad. It's because they're that damn good. So the first episode, I think the moment that got me the most was the explanation of Chavo getting a phone call saying that his uncle's not responding. And it was not responding to a wake-up call. And it was when Eddie had passed away in the hotel room. And Chavo talks about going down and grabbing Eddie and pulling him up, and Eddie's not even gone yet. He's not even gone yet, which I did not know this. And at the moment, I'm like, what are they talking? I thought Eddie just was passed away in a hotel room by himself. But Chavo talks about he picks him up. He's kind of like gurgling, and Eddie is fighting still with his toothbrush in his hand still. And he dies in Chavo's arms. And Chavo's explaining this, and I was done. That was it. That was the moment that this episode of the two episodes got me. And I was like, what am I doing? How am I watching this? This is going to be impossible for me to not have echoes and shadows in my mind of this exact description of what happened to Eddie Guerrero with Chavo holding him in it. I mean, powerful stuff, man. Like, holy cow, powerful stuff. Chavo Guerrero, the man has incredible mental strength to me to be able to go through that in his life, not to mention go through the Chris Benoit death as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought it was interesting, and I'm not trying to say anything the wrong way. So I don't want anybody to take anything the wrong way. I'm not condoning anything that Chris Benoit has ever done, but I think that it was said a couple times by the end of the second episode, and I think most wrestling fans that have been watching for a long time can agree how incredible of a worker Chris Benoit was, and how he was a very incredible wrestler. Does he get to be called one of the greatest wrestlers of all time? No, he doesn't. And that's because of what he did. I thought what was interesting about the episodes, though, was how much they almost very humanized Chris Benoit by the end of the first episode, only to just like, and then we'll let him speak for himself kind of in the second episode. And he wasn't actually speaking anything, but like what he did, and it just totally erased that. And if anything, it really was one of those things where I think throughout the years, as it's gotten further and further away from that tragedy, you forget how much of a tragedy it actually was, and how, the loss of life of, Nancy Benoit and his younger son, like it was just so unnecessary. I think the sister says it at one point, or somebody, I think maybe it was Dean Malenko's wife, actually, like, if you want to kill yourself, just kill yourself. Like, nobody's gonna fault you for that. As much as like if you murder somebody. it was intense. What else do you guys think about it?
Like you guys were saying, it is beautifully done, and it's just extremely sobering just to see how just the other side to it. And like you said, the further and further away it gets, you don't remember how just horrible the whole situation was. And then to come full circle, like Chris was saying with Chavo, just like all of them were so close. And for Chavo to be able to be there holding Eddie as he dies, and then to go through everything with Chris, like just that's man, like this the demons that they had from all the years, it's saddening, but just the whole thing was beautifully done. I enjoyed it. I kind of want to go back and watch it now that we're talking about it. Like watch it again.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say than what you guys said. I mean, I agree with Chris. I mean, that part, even now, just thinking about it, of Chavo coming into a room and then having Eddie just pass while he's holding him, is like so hard to even like fathom, and then, he's out there. I mean, I think he was out there, the next Raw for, the little tribute that they did to him. I know he definitely spoke on that Raw, about Eddie. But another thing that I two other things that I really liked about that episode was towards the end of the second hour, or the second part of it, David kind of starts to break down, and then you see Chavo come over and like give him a hug, pat him on the back, and is just like, brother, man, you just, it's good, just do it, like just get it out, just do it, just go for it. And the other thing that I really liked was, Chris Jericho in it, spoke very candidly, at certain times, of which, you kind of have to when you're so close to a situation. He saw both sides of it. Um, but it seemed like I'm pretty sure he was the one that got David and the sister kind of back together, and it looks like they were at an AEW event. I don't know.
Oh, the Sears Center, they definitely were, yeah.
Okay,
It might have been Revolution. Like it might have been like recently. Like it was
Yeah.
really weird, like how recent it almost seemed like it was, because it looked like Jericho was dressed like he was for Revolution. He didn't have like the Painmaker makeup on or anything. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
again, instrumental in bringing those two together and bringing that closure that those two had. And really, that I think that ultimately is the story. Like it really wasn't Eddie's death. It was Chris Benoit's death and the people that were left behind after the fact. So
Yeah.
go watch it one time. Don't time unless you're Steven, understand how you can watch it again, because holy cow, powerful. I give you credit for being able to watch it again, Steven. I can't do it. I can't.
It was interesting, actually. I think, that Eddie part of it was so interesting from the standpoint of like, I guess them making this little couple episode doc about Benoit in particular, how they look at all the facts, and it's time for them to do the documentary, and they're doing, I guess, their preliminary interviews and thinking to themselves, oh my goodness, it's crazy the effect that Eddie Guerrero's death had on Chris Benoit. Like, you could almost say like nobody took it harder than Chris Benoit, not even his wife. And that's crazy.
Yeah, that part. And then, I mean, that whole part with Christopher Nowitzki coming in,
Yeah.
with the whole brain damage thing. I mean, no, I could totally not even remember anything about that happening at the time, but I don't remember anything about that. But I mean, you while watching those chair shots during some of those matches that they showed during the documentary, I mean, you cringe. I mean, we loved it when it was happening. Like it was just so over while we were watching it. And then you kind of go back seeing how wrestling in the quote unquote mainstream has kind of changed over the years. And I mean, man, those shots that those guys took at that time, I mean, it's amazing that some of these guys can even walk and talk with what happened to them.
Yeah. In regards to the series as a whole, I'm sure it's not the last episode that's going to be difficult to watch because they're doing one on Owen Hart eventually this year. So I know that that's going to be a little bit rough. If they follow the little schedule that I found, then the next episode would be called "The Life and Crimes of
New Jack.
New Jack," which, oh my gosh, if you are a hardcore historian like myself, New Jack is one of the craziest wrestlers in the business because of the maliciousness of the stuff that he does, and in the hardcore harm that he inflicts on people, and he's meaning to do it.
Yeah, like you said, malicious wrestler. No, he's just a malicious person.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
But I am very interested in seeing that episode. Again, quick shout out to the first season. There are a couple episodes that are. I mean, I think the whole show is worth watching, but I can't push enough how good the Killing of Bruiser Brody is, and how good Last of the Von Erichs is. I think both of those episodes, for me, really, really, really shine bright on the first season. I would suggest everybody go watch that. Especially, gosh, I actually watched Last of the Von Erichs again. The whole story around the Von Erichs it's just so crazy. And I would suggest everybody go look into that and read up on it. And, especially now when, wrestling, there's a little bit less of it in regards to like in-ring stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I really think would captivate people, especially because we have a country full of people that really like watching like true crime stuff and like stuff like that. I think that the interweaving of that true crime and wrestling, that really is the dark side of the ring, and I think it does that very well, and highly suggest it to any.
I second everything that Jimmy just said.
Little interesting fact about that whole Chris Benoit show, Chris Benoit tribute show that they did. So when they find out that he passed away and they don't know the specifics around it, so they do a tribute show. That show was actually supposed to be more of a tribute show to Vince McMahon because that was the storyline that they had to scrap when Vince's limo exploded. So it was a very interesting time in WWE because they were about to do a storyline where Vince McMahon was essentially murdered. And then this happened. So a little bit of, reality and, fake world overlapping each other a little.
Yeah, and I think that limo blowing up was actually in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I was
was.
at that show.
Yeah, that was a Bridgeport show. I remember that too.
Well,
That was a
my
weird one, but they just squashed it. They just actually, that was one of the times that Vince McMahon actually came out. And if you watch that whole um, presentation of him, I believe it was on ECW the next night, where he had to basically swallow his pride and say, "We screwed up. There will be no more talk of Chris Benoit from this point on." And he also mentions that the whole limousine explosion was basically, staged, kayfabe. And it's like a weird moment in history where wrestling had to basically just say, "Listen, everybody, it's fake," and then kind of get back to wrestling.
Well, yeah, and another thing about the documentary, what I thought it was interesting, what Jericho said was like, you know, Chris Benoit doing what he did, like almost destroyed like wrestling, at the time, in a way.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that they talk about in there is, they mention it, and I think unanimously everybody says, even though we think he's one of the greatest wrestlers ever, he should never ever be inducted into the Hall of Fame. But Nancy should be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And you know what? I've watched a lot of
Woman.
ECW, and I remember her as woman, and I couldn't agree more. She was like so important in all of those storylines for somebody who never wrestled. And in the thing that little doc hits out of the park is they've lost that. They've lost the art of, the manager. And I'm not saying that it died specifically with her, but you just used to have people like, the Nancy Benoits and the Paul Bearers of the world that they didn't need to wrestle, but they were so good at pushing storylines. And it'd be interesting to see a little bit of that come back. You don't need it for everybody. But you know what? When you have wrestlers that struggle, it makes a whole lot of sense sometimes. That's why you see somebody like Selena Vega with Andrade, because Andrade can't really speak for himself in the English language. So you use Selena Vega as but Selena Vega is, in fact, a wrestler at the same time. It gets...
Yeah, and I mean, I talked about and I bitched about, the Bella twins getting inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, and I don't know how many podcasts ago it was, but I had even had a list of 6 or 7 other, females that were primarily just wrestlers that aren't in the Hall of Fame, and didn't even factor in, somebody like Nancy Benoit, woman, into that whole thing. To be somebody in the, she would be in the same category as Miss Elizabeth. Like, Miss Elizabeth did some in-ring stuff, but she never wrestled either. So, it's interesting that they bring that up. And Jericho was the one that I think said that in the documentary. But again, yeah, I mean, the art of the manager is kind of lost these days.
Well, I for you guys that I do the podcast with me, I would like you guys to continue watching that show so that we can talk about some of these episodes as they happen.
I definitely will. You got me hooked on this show, so I am going to continue to watch. And they do have some really, really good ones this season, I think.
The Owen Hart one's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah,
I already know.
I don't even remember what grade I was. It was high school. I remember to this day where I was, who I was with, and where we and where we are and how we were watching that pay-per-view, and just like the utter disbelief of did that just happen? I mean, it was crazy.
It was you were actually in college, Chuck, and I'm pretty certain we were hanging out watching this pay-per-view because it was my senior year of high school. So I'm pretty sure we were all hanging out and watching that when it happened.
We were at Maddie's house, right?
I think so.
Yep. I mean, yeah. I think the whole room just went silent when it happened. I think we all were sitting there wondering, are they going to continue going on with the show?
I was wondering, it was a work.
Yeah, that too. I mean, there's no way.
The initial thought, is this a work? So finding out the specifics around it and how deep they actually go into this, which is I'm afraid about how far they're going to go into this, because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to how it happened, why it happened, and hopefully why it'll never happen again.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, like, I think Jimmy, you said this earlier, like, and Steven, I think, said it too. Good job for the show, the producers, the people that conduct these interviews, but like, one of the ones from the first season was about Gorgeous Gino, who I had never heard of before I watched that episode. But man, I mean, the lengths that they went through to like talk to people that were involved. I mean, one of the guys they talked to was like in like the drug cartel, like in the mob or something, that they talked to like after he got out of prison and stuff. I mean, the lengths that they go to find out as much information as possible. And it seems to me, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, guys who have watched the show, they don't sway one way or the other. They seem to keep it very even keel, present the facts, and just kind of give you way more background than you probably ever heard at the time of anything ever happening.
Well, yeah, and I think that was present in, like, you can convince yourself that they're trying to sway you. Like, in a way, I convinced myself after watching the first part of the Benoit thing. Wow, they humanized him a lot. Well, no, they didn't. They just told you the story. You humanized him in your head. And then, oh, they dehumanized him in the second episode. No, they just gave you the facts. You dehumanized him in your head. And, I think that's accurate. I think that they do a very, very, very good job. I mean, because it's, what is the politics of wrestling? Is there, the only thing that they struggle with on that show is that wrestlers that do wrestle for WWE probably just cannot talk to them. So they get guys that used to work in the business, but you never see like people of, that time talking about it. It should be interesting to see the Owen Hart episode to see if they let anybody from WWE actually talk to them, or if it's just going to be the guys that used to work in the business that don't work there anymore.
Probably will be that. I mean, it seems like, especially with some of these things having been on quote unquote WWE turf, I doubt their PR department wants anybody that is still with the company, talking about it at all. And it's interesting that, I mean, wouldn't you think that WWE would have to give them the rights to the footage to show? So then, like, on the other hand, it's like, well, why wouldn't somebody like Triple H talk about it, or Vince talk about it, having been there, if they're giving them the okay to use the footage? I don't know.
If they actually, use any footage. I mean, they might just do, the dramatization of it. Like, they did that, they do that a lot in a lot of the episodes. And they play
they showed a lot of stuff from the WWE stuff during the Benoit thing. I mean, they had part of McMahon's speech,
Sure.
With just him in camera view, and they had a bunch of shots of like the wrestlers coming out for the Eddie thing, for the Benoit thing, so they had to get approval for it.
Yeah.
So it must just be a thing where they're like, hey, yeah, listen, we'll let you use the archive footage.
It's Benoit. It's because it's Benoit, right?
Maybe
they don't want to ever talk about him, so they just don't. But maybe that'll change with the Owen Hart episode. I hope it does. I would think it would be like if they were able to keep it under wraps, and then all of a sudden you have somebody like Triple H talking on an episode like that. That would be flippin' spectacular.
Yeah, I wish they would have talked to HBK during the Montreal Screwjob episode.
Yeah, it's tricky stuff.
I feel like they asked him and he decided not to, which that's always going to be the question. What did Sean know? And interesting. What was it? What's Austin's new show called that he's got on the network?
Broken
Skulls.
Broken Skull.
Yeah, Broken Skull. With Bret the Hitman Hart. It's actually pretty entertaining. I mean, they go into a little bit of it, And I enjoyed it because Bret Hart said that Goldberg is the worst, most dangerous wrestler he's ever been in the ring with. So I enjoyed that too, because I mean it's always fun to hear about Oldberg. So
Yeah, and it was interesting on the Benoit thing, since Nancy was with Sullivan before, and he declined to talk about anything that happened between him and Nancy.
well, because I mean, he's basically been said that he beat her up and stuff, so he
Yeah.
didn't want to even get into that conversation. Interesting stuff. I mean, again, it's a well put together show. I would watch every episode at least once and then probably be done with it. But it's interesting stuff, and I've enjoyed every episode I've watched. So yeah, with the bald monkey seal of approval, Dark Side of the Ring.
Well, boys, want to go around the horn? Give your little hot take, whether it's something you're looking for, one last thing you want to bitch about, one last thing you want to compliment. Anything at all?
I'll go with and I think I said this in the text chat, but for as much crap as I and we at times have given Brandy Rhodes for being not the best wrestler, and her Nightmare Collective thing was pretty much terrible, I do have to say she has a damn good announcer voice. I think she should stick to that. She did a really good job. That voice for announcing the wrestlers coming down to the ring, absolutely perfect. Good job, Brandy Rhodes.
So I was trying to think of something to bitch about, but I feel like I do that too much. So I'm gonna talk about something that I've enjoyed, and I think I'm gonna continue to enjoy. Drew Gulak and Daniel Bryan have some weird chemistry that I'm really digging, and it seems like on social media, Daniel Bryan is starting to reach out to uh, Chad Gable, because I'm not going to call him Shorty G.
Thank you. I was gonna say, please don't call him Shorty G.
I stopped myself. I was like, you know what? You need to make a conscious effort to not promote that. So he's reaching out to Chad Gable, and I would love, and I think this goes back to Jimmy's kind of concept of factions and building these groups. What if you had Daniel Bryan, Drew Gulak, Chad Gable, these mat technicians as a group that are just going around being ridiculous, training on social media, training in the ring, and just building a great group to go up against these heels. And I think it's great. I think it's great for wrestling. I think it's great for these younger guys who could use the push. And I think it's working really well, and I hope to see more of it.
I agree with that. And I guess the praise I want to give, I was very critical about AEW for a while, and they have started fixing things little by little. And with everything going on, they have been the most consistent out of wrestling for me, at least. So I'm just gonna praise them a little bit more and keep doing what.
I'm thinking of two videos that I saw this week. One was maybe today, and it was a tweet that Britt Baker sent out where she takes her finger, puts it in makeup, and like draws a line across Adam Cole's head. And then another one was them doing backstage and John Moxley scaring the crap out of Renee Young with the dog while they're filming or whatever. Wrestling and wrestling content, and especially right now, it's been interesting to see how the community kind of comes together and kind of just embraces one another, and it's refreshing to remember that we don't, as much as we push, this country as capitalistic money making monster, and companies like WWE and AEW, and it's all about getting ratings and making money and stuff like that. Wrestling is the thing that it gets your heart in it, like the fun that's had and the good times, and you realize that the only people that are building these walls tend to be the companies themselves. And so the one good thing through all of this that I've seen is, all this content online, all these, wrestlers tweeting all the time, interacting with fans, and getting much more interactive, really, because that's just everybody's inside. You're just looking at your phone all the time. So you're always chirping at each other on social media. They're answering lots of questions. It's been a spectacular time for fans, given how bad of a time it has been generally in the world. And I really appreciate the place that wrestling has taken, for the fans, and how it's maintained its importance, and it keeps people, going on the day to day. So shout out to wrestling and all the fans out there in the wrestling community. Well, that's been our time. We thank you guys for listening. Another Saturday night podcast in the books. I wish I had an episode name for it, but I'm gonna have to come up with it later. I couldn't think of anything, unless one of you guys can shout it out real quick.
I got nothing right now. I was gonna make another shout out to the independent guys, but that's about it.
Chuck, what's the name of the podcast this week? Episode 52. What? A year of monkeys. It's 52 weeks in a year, right?
2020.
WrestleMess
2020. Episode 52.
2020.
Episode 52. WrestleMess 2020. Again, shout out to the wrestling community. Chris, go.
So Chris Bay, go check out Chris Bay. Go check out Alex Zane. Go check out Mance Warner. Go check out there's so much guys on this list. Go check out anybody in New Japan right now. Go check out anybody in MLW if you can. Just go on YouTube and type in independent wrestling. Go check out the people on NWA, Allison K. Go check out the question mark. Go check out people that aren't on mainstream wrestling. Just go enjoy wrestling. Go enjoy another great week of wrestling, hopefully, even if it is just YouTubing it. Jay Walker. I have so many names to give out. I'll give out more next week, but take your time this week. Go watch some wrestling. Have a good time.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.